Welcome. My name is Laurel Walczak. I'm a professor here at Ryerson University, and I also founded the Global Experiential Sport Lab, we're here in the Catalyst, which is a research hub here at Ryerson University. And one of our platforms that we work on is gender equity in sport and sport media. So it made a lot of sense to partner with Anka Jess and with her She's4Sports. So I'm really excited for you all to be here this evening. We have a mix of a few students that go to Ryerson University, and we also talk about how important it is that while we talk about gender equity in sport, we also include males in the conversation. And so I'm really pleased to see a number of our male allies that are here to support the initiatives that we're doing to be able to mobilize change in the sport industry. So we have an unbelievable lineup for tonight, and I'd want to get you meet your guest panelists. So I'd like to also talk about an unbelievable trailblazer, an amazing woman that I met who spoke here at Ryerson for our students last spring. Her name is Anka Jess. I'm sure many of you know who she is. And I was just wowed by her and followed her on social media and felt like this is a perfect fit for our lab here at the university, where we also not only do research but work on the intersection between what we do here in academia and with our students and industry. So it was a perfect partnership, and I would like to introduce, once I read her bio, Anka Jess. So Anka is passionate about communications, and she's also passionate about empowering young women and girls. And she combines those two passions, and she's been doing that for over 12 years. She also has media relations experience, and she used that experience to launch She's4Sports. She's4Sports, sorry, I just lectured for 3 hours, so maybe that's why I'm having trouble speaking. Is a Toronto-based network that represents a community of over 3,000 voices, 3,000 people that are advocating for this space of passionate women and men who want to amplify and celebrate the contributions of women in sports. Anka also has provided strategic communications and media relations and support to various organizations such as CBC, Manulife, the City of Ottawa, PwC, and BMO. Anka is an avid speaker, passionate speaker. She likes to raise awareness on diversity in sport. She's a woman who also likes to raise awareness for women in leadership and women in entrepreneurship, hence the panelists that are here tonight. Her speaking engagements also include CIBC, Design Challenge, Rotman Commerce, Women's Leadership Symposium, and George Brown College's International Women, just to name a few, and not limited to these. She's been featured on CBC's Metro Morning, and I'm sure you're going to see her more and more as this community continues to grow, and we support one another in hers and our desire to mobilize change and give more equity and equality to women in sport. So, with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Anka Jess.
Going to scoot over here, everyone. I was really thinking about what I wanted to say to you guys in this intro, and really is, I want you guys to give yourselves a round of applause first. And the reason why I say that to you is there is a lot of talk out there that people don't support women's sports. Some people don't value it. Some people say, well, it's going to be hard to get a whole bunch of women talking about sports together, and you guys just showed them that it's possible. So that's why I wanted you guys to give yourselves a round of applause. Back to what Kia Nurse was saying, that really stuck with me, is you can't engage in things that you can't see. And that's why women are fighting for coverage in sports, coverage on air. We're fighting to have our faces as, on the sides of the billboard buses, just like our male athletes are. We're fighting for sponsorships. You guys are a part of that fight with me because we're here and we're giving women a larger voice in sports, and we're supporting these women who are trailblazers and women in business and sports. So thank you so much for coming. I always get the question asked, why did you start She's4Sports? I've had people email me on LinkedIn, won't say their names, Some male colleagues, oh, this is very brave of you, good luck. I'm like, well, I'm not, going bungee jumping, because people still see this type of work as challenging. But as I said, it's possible. Women are out there doing great things across the board in sports, and I can't wait for you guys to talk to these women here. And back to why I started She's4Sports, it was conversations. Women that I knew through work, my colleagues, women who would say they're getting ready to go to a dinner party with their husband, and he'd say, tell me what you're going to say about the Blue Jays now, because I don't want you to embarrass us. That was happening in 2016 when I launched it. Meeting a colleague at work who her daughters at school wanted to start a football club, and some people at the school said, well, girls don't play football. That's why I started She's4Sports. It was those conversations. It was looking at something that needed to be done. And as I said, we're all doing it because we're here, and I really appreciate the support. So enough about me. I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel that we have here. And first of all, I'm going to start with Kat Stavankovic, who I'm sure many of you guys already seen on TV with the Raptors. So Kat is one of Canada's most recognized sports and on-air personalities, known for her role as the in-game and digital host of the Toronto Raptors and a host for NBA TV Canada. She's also a multi-platform digital personality and continues to make a mark as a rising influencer in the lifestyle and sports industries, including her role as an Adidas ambassador. Her passion for life, infectious energy, and dynamic presence, both on and off the camera, is what she's known for as she continues to leave her mark as an artist, storyteller, and entrepreneur. Kat. Yes.
Is this me?
Yeah, that's you.
Amazing.
Jennifer Huggins is the founder and CEO and serial entrepreneur. She owns and operates Kingsway Boxing Club in Toronto, Canada. As a 3-star international boxing referee and judge with, is it AIBA or AIBA? AIBA, International Boxing Association. She understands a sport from the inside out. In addition to coaching at her gym, Jennifer's the founder and executive director of the Fight to End Cancer and provincial chief official for Boxing Ontario. She's heavily involved in the community, however, still manages to find the time to travel the world performing, wait, with a world-class magician. We'll talk to her about that when she gets out here. Jennifer? Callie Rikus. Before becoming the founder and CEO of Bolo Body Love Inc., Callie spent 12 years as an entertainment TV producer and wellness journalist. As a freelance writer, fitness enthusiast, part-time personal trainer, and amateur boxer, I love these women. They just have receipts and they're just doing so many fun things. Callie began noticing flaws in the existing wellness facilities. She dreamed of a space that could support all her different needs, a place to work out, refuel, feel beautiful, and connect with the community, without having to travel to many different places. With no business experience, she decided to make this dream a reality, opening Bolo, a 7,000 square foot wellness wonderland in the heart of downtown Toronto, equipped with a salon, cafe, 2 fitness studios, and boxing ring. Is anybody coming with me? Let's go. Callie. Caroline Wiley, founder of See What She Can Do. And she's also a chief photographer for See What She Can Do. With over 20 years of professional involvement in the sport and recreation industry, Carolyn bridged her business savvy action photography skills to launch See What She Can Do, the first of its kind digital platform that connects women to the content, community, and resources they need to stay active. Her vision is to unite women around the power of sport and achieve lasting improvements for gender equality, inclusion, diversity, and healthier communities. Caroline. Michelle Loss. Michelle is the owner of Optimum Training Center, a 6,000 square foot personal training facility in Toronto, Canada, that specializes in working with athletes and persons of all fitness levels with a strong drive and dedication to fitness stemming from her days as an amateur competitive boxer. She has established herself as the go-to authority for all things health and wellness as a certified personal trainer, motivational speaker, kickboxing, and kettlebell instructor. Michelle is widely recognized and respected in the fitness community. She has competed in physique competitions as well as successfully prepared and trained hundreds of others as a transformation coach. Nichelle is also a fitness cover model and has appeared in some of the world's top magazines and has partnered with Nike and Puma, among other companies, on several campaigns. And she's also a mother of 4 boys. Nichelle. And we have Esther, who you guys gave a warm welcome to when we were testing out our audio with her. And Esther's fabulous. She runs Play a Society. She's the founder and designer of Play a Society Sportswear, a brand that celebrates and empowers women in sports. She's a former athlete as well, Division I athlete. She played in NCAA Division I basketball, then went on to play and coach overseas in England. Once her playing days were over, Esther began designing sports-inspired t-shirts, choosing to explore entrepreneurship rather than designing for established sportswear brands. In January 2018, Esther launched Play a Society with a mission of contributing to the positive progression of women's sports. And that's our talented panel. So my first question for the panel, I'm going to ask Esther. Esther, thank you so much for being so patient with us as we get going here. The question is around the big shift. I know you were playing Division I basketball, but you also had an interest in fashion. When did you make that big shift, and why to launch Play a Society, and what was that like?
It's always funny for me because before I ever started playing sports, I actually, I wanted to go to the Fashion Institute of Technology. So that's what I wanted to do before I ever even played any sport. But of course, once I kind of fell in love with basketball, I was 15 years old when that happened, and that kind of consumed my life a bit. So the years that followed were all about basketball. And then it was actually when I was playing overseas in England, I was also getting my master's degree in marketing management. And I had started my master's thesis at that time, which I thought was just going to be kind of like a fluff, get my grade and write a little bit about sports media, something of that sort. But as I did a little bit of digging and I looked at my own personal experiences, I started writing about the disproportionate media coverage for athletes in sports. And so once I dove into that and I kind of, really looked at those facts and really started to understand how I felt as a female athlete, that's when things kind of began to unfold and I decided to pursue the sportswear and entrepreneurial side of things.
And Callie, I'll get you to join into that conversation because you obviously were a writer, TV producer working in health and wellness. What was that aha moment for you to say, I'm shifting and I'm not going to do the thing that I was doing before my old job, but I'm going to jump into being an entrepreneur with Bolo?
Yeah, I think similarly, it wasn't a conscious shift in the moment. It was a desire to actualize on a vision that came to me over time. So I didn't think to myself like, okay, now I'm going to switch from being a journalist to being a business owner. But it was so obvious to me, the sort of hole that needed to be filled. And it was also so clear that I was the best person for that job. And so it was something I just couldn't ignore. It was almost like a calling.
Nichelle, do you feel that same way too with Optimum Training Center?
I do, yes, because especially for me, I don't know if we mentioned that at all before, but I was a police officer for 15 years, and growing up, that's all I ever wanted to do.
I wanted you to tell them that.
So, and for me, it was a snowball effect that happened to me as well, because I never meant to leave my job. I loved what I do, and I still do miss it to this day. I don't regret my decision for leaving for what I did, because I'm still changing lives. In fact, I'm impacting more people what I'm doing now, because I say unfortunately, because with being a police officer, I'm always there at a bad time. I'm trying to make things better, but I'm always there at a bad time. So although you're appreciated, you don't feel like you're changing lives at that moment, right? So it's hard to explain, but you go in, or I went in going, I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to change the way that, whatever happened to me, or, I want to help others. I'm a caregiver. And so as I just progressed over my career and I started having children, things started changing, and I entered the fitness industry. I started coaching, and that was all by chance. And over the years, my, I guess, part-time job as a fitness instructor or fitness coach literally took over all my spare time, and I literally rolled into that, I guess, position. So the next thing, it wasn't like when I left policing, no one was really surprised. It's not like I went into, let's say, real estate, something that I had no idea about. It was an easy transition for me, and right now I feel like I'm making the difference in the world, and it's been 4 years of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, but it was quite like the impact and quite the change. I mean, you know, I was so comfortable at what I did, and that's all that I knew. I never ran a business, you know, kind of like it just happened, and I'm glad I did it.
Kat, I want to get you in this conversation because most of the women up here had different things that they were pursuing full-time, whether you want to call it day job and then transitioned from their side hustle. But it seems like entrepreneurs and women who are growing their brands, you have to have multiple things going on in your life. How has pursuing multiple things in your career helped you to share your brand and to grow your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go out there thinking that every day would be different, but I came to this point in my life, you know, I kind of judged myself for not having that one thing that I was doing, or that one thing, you know, people ask you, you know, what do you do for a living? And I, like we mentioned earlier, you know, how much time do you have? Because the list goes on. And the minute that I kind of said, you know, that's okay. It's okay to be more than one thing, and it's okay to do more than one thing, everything really came together. So once I said, you know, this is the way it is, then, you know, things started coming together, and I realized that every day being different is actually what makes me thrive. And that's what I tell other people, you know, you don't need to be one thing or do one thing. It's beautiful to have many outlets and experiences and touch many people in different ways. So.
Jennifer, I want to get you in on this because I know the audience is probably dying to know, how do you juggle being a boxing referee, owning your gym, owning Fight to End Cancer, and still travel as a magician's assistant? Like, yeah.
Yeah, when I hear it...
I was going to say hashtag career goals. Career goals all around.
You know what, when I hear it, I think it's interesting, actually, exactly speaking to what Kat said. I kind of feel like almost like an underachiever because of the fact that I didn't have that one goal. Growing up, I think the only goal I can remember ever saying to my mom when I was growing up is I want to be a massage therapist. Because massage therapy to me, when I was growing up, I was a figure skater. I was on the national team. I was a national level figure skater. I didn't make it to the national team. But when I was getting massage therapy, it was, speaking to the caregiver part of things, that was the one person that was keeping me in business, so to speak. So, there we go. So, in my mind, I think that I just didn't realize it at the time, but I genuinely just wanted to be able to help people achieve what I was wanting to achieve as an athlete, and it kind of all came to fruition. And actually, I think it's important to state that before the past, I would say 5 years, I actually used to hide everything that I did. I have a wonderful support system. I have a great fiance who I actually used to say owned Kingsway Boxing Club, because it was very unbelievable for people to hear that I did this, that, the next thing, and I also was at the top level of it. I was actually embarrassed, and I was scared that people would question me, and people did. They really did question me, which made me question myself. So doing more and doing everything and adapting, I think, has been something that has been the theme of what I think is very important in business. And I think that we were just speaking about kind of pivoting and understanding that about yourself and your surroundings. You have to adapt to whatever opportunity is presented to you.
Caroline, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this stat. So 94% of women in the C-suite, including CEOs, played sports growing up. Why do you think there's such a strong correlation between sports, athleticism for women, and leadership? I know you have about 25 years of leadership in sports management and now have started your own company.
I think a large part of it is you've had to work with a team or work towards a goal, or the championship, and everybody has to figure out how are we going to do the strategy, play the game to get the end result. So you're already in that mindset to solve problems, find solutions, work together. So to me, it's just a natural step to the next level, right? It's just a different way of team building and coming together to solve problems. Because that's the goal, right? When we set objectives and missions and values, we're trying to understand what's the problem, how are we going to fix it, and what's going to sort of shape what we do in terms of the boundaries that we're willing to work up towards, right? And so, to me, I don't think that's unlike what all of us have done within our sport careers. So I think that really kind of, it's the transferability, and I think I'm sensing a theme here. It's that multitasking,
Yep.
being able to sometimes roll with it, but sometimes pivot to doing whatever it needs to be done to get it done. So, and I think we all have to embrace that. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I think that's the biggest challenge to get comfortable with. But then once you get comfortable with it, then all of a sudden it's almost like you hear click, 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 and then everything comes into place and you're like, okay, I'm good with this, let's roll.
Esther, talking about launching your own sportswear line, what were some of the hurdles that you faced? And did everything come together and you just rode off into the sunset and you were getting all these people buying everything online? Or can you tell us a little bit about what that journey has been like?
So while I launched Playa Society in 2018, at the beginning of 2018, before that I had been trying to figure out exactly what it was that I was going to do. What was the sportswear idea that I had? What were this like t-shirt and apparel and design? How was I going to kind of bring this together? So probably as early as the beginning of 2015 was the first time that I started designing t-shirts and selling them online. And I wish I could say that, all the customers were just flocking to my website and buying things immediately. So it took a lot of time. And I think that that's a testament to, that whole idea of being a leader and playing sports and what it does for you, because I had to learn, I had learned through basketball how to make adjustments and how to kind of pivot when needed and how to be a little bit strategic, but also how to bounce back when I failed. So, early on, there would be weeks and months that would go by and sales were pretty slow. Nobody knew anything about who I was or what I was doing. So really bouncing back from that and kind of staying focused and talking myself through things and being strategic. That's how I ended up at the point where Playa Society developed and became a brand.
I'm glad you mentioned the word failure, and a lot of people always ask the question of how did you pick yourself up? But I want to know, what did you learn? And I'll ask Jennifer, with starting your business, trying to pour in all of your passions into the different things you were doing. Is there a moment where you had a hiccup or a setback, and what did you learn from it?
So I was just actually speaking in the back about the fact that I didn't plan on owning a business. That wasn't my ultimate goal. But my business came on, or the start of the business came on the heels of a massive failure that was it was an injury. So I actually broke my neck as a figure skater. So I don't know if you should call that a failure, but when your only goal, I had one focus, one mind, my only goal was to go to the Olympics as a figure skater. That was very harshly taken away from me. And I don't want to say taken away from me because, again, the theme of today seems to be pivoting. I just didn't know, I didn't have any kind of idea and I think that's just listening to the bio that I have, I think that's part of the theme as to why I collect so many outlets to do what I do. It's all come on a lot of failure. Someone, I think Carolyn, was saying about getting comfortable. That is actually one thing that makes me uncomfortable. The minute I feel comfortable is, especially in business, is the first time that you'll see me get really uncomfortable and get restless. And if I'm not failing, if things are working out, that's when I'm the most scared. So the picking myself up part, I actually feel really comfortable in that zone. I'm really uncomfortable when it feels like it's actually going well. So just embracing that.
Caroline, you told me when I spoke to you on the phone that your idea for See What She Can Do, you were thinking it was going to be a magazine.
Yes.
And then it's launched into this online platform. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Sure. So I would just to give a little background. See What She Can Do has sort of been percolating in my brain for probably 10 or 15 years. And I was in the sport and rec industry for over 20 and did a master's in sport and rec and looked at how women and girls make their decisions to get involved. And so it kind of percolated at the back, and for me as someone who loves sport and it's an important part of who I am, I wasn't seeing myself. I wasn't seeing me in the sport pages because I love to read the sports, watch the sports, and I knew it was out there. I just didn't know where to find it. And I kept looking, I couldn't find it. And I finally decided, you know what, it's time to just create it for myself. And then fast forward, I moved around with my husband throughout North America, settled in Aurora, then met this wonderful lady, Tina Finale, who's my co-founder. And by that point, it was 10 plus years. And technology, the way it is really powerful. And so much of what we do is at our fingertips. So for me, it didn't make sense to do a paper magazine. It made more sense to understand how do we engage with information. And so it made more sense to do a digital app. Or it's a site, but it's in app form. It's mobile friendly. And so I basically took Tina, as talented and strategic as she is in business, kind of took her magic wand and took everything that had sort of created in my brain, and we see what she can do together. We built the platform, talked to a lot of women, had a couple of bumps along the way in terms of trying to find good, talented people to help us build the site, and you're going to have ups and downs with that. But really, to answer your question, it was, how do people get their information now? So originally, back when the idea was created, it was a magazine. I really just wanted to see myself, because I'd like to read Sports Illustrated, but I wasn't seeing, the stories about the women who were doing great things out there. And I'm like, I know they're out there.
Oh, yeah, we are. We're all in this room.
Yeah, exactly. And for me also, having done the research and knowing that a lot of the barriers and issues that I discussed 25 years ago doing my master's, we're still talking those issues today. Yeah. And so for me, the digital platform was the practical solutions to help us solve our own problems, but also work together to change the story, really. Mm-hmm. So,
Nichelle, I want to talk to you about technology and social media, and like how are you finding that as such an engager and a tool to help support the women that you're helping to transform?
I never use social media. I'm just kidding. Actually, in fact, everyone
Google
laughs
her, everybody.
at me.
Google her.
I know it's really funny because, especially when I opened my business about 4 years ago, and I kind of started the Instagram thing shortly before that, and I realized that it is a crazy tool, and although I love it, but I hate it, right? And I have to use it. And I've proven to myself that it is such a great tool if used, obviously, correctly. And, again, I do my own social media. And I know that some people love to hire, people from the outside, which is amazing. And I've thought about doing that, and I've tried to do it. But to me, it doesn't seem real. I'm not in that moment to, let's say, post that whatever I'm going to post. So I love to be real and in the moment, and if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to post it. And my platforms are a little bit different, and I love to engage people, but I'm also relatable on so many levels because, let's say, the athlete side of me, like the fitness competitor, the boxer back in the day, the police officer, so like safety. I've done a lot of self-defense stuff, the boot camps. And on another level, I'm the mom making 4 lunches in the morning, sharing their snacks. So I can relate to so many different people and what I throw out there is literally what I feel in the moment, and I try to mix it up, depending on the engagement, so that people really understand that I'm trying to help them succeed in whatever level they're doing. So I love the social media aspect if used properly, and of course, you do have to get out there. And I really found that by having my own website and, engaging people on social media, using, I use Facebook ads, super, like, they've just worked wonders, not only for my online business as a transformation specialist, but also on the gym side. So I love using it for branding purposes.
Kat, I'll get you into this conversation because I know your Twitter is probably like 16,000 followers and IG is probably more than that. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry with sports leagues and sports organizations really using social media as a tool to push that diversity. We have Watch Me Work for the WNBA. We have Like a Girl. I think it was Always that did a campaign. So what are you seeing in the industry with people using social to get that message out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is point proven right here, right? When I was starting in the industry, to be able to be this touchable to everybody, it wasn't available. Panels like this weren't available. You didn't have people to ask those questions to. And personally, I have people reach out to me on social media, Instagram or whatever. Can we go for a coffee? Can you give me, what happened through that first year in the broadcasting world? And I just think that's so wonderful to be able to give back that way through social media. And honestly, for anybody trying to get into the broadcasting world, I started as an actor, so back in the day, you had your resume and you walked into an audition room with that headshot, and that was your opportunity to be seen. You had those 5 people sitting there. Sometimes you said, "Hi, my name is Kat," and they're like, "Okay, we've seen enough. Thank you so much," right? So now it's so wonderful to be able to, share your hard work and what you're getting up to, and even use social media as kind of a practicing tool. I'm active on IG stories, and this is something that I started even I'd say over the last couple of years. I know it's pretty new. So how long has it been around? A couple of years? Okay. But I've booked gigs that way. Like I've had people say, "Hey, I saw you in your sweatpants, running down Lakeshore. I'd love to give you this MC gig." So I always say that to people. I'm serious. I know people don't believe me, but I always say that to people really getting into the broadcasting world, or an actor, or anybody that wants to be a performer, a presenter, moderator, use it. Use it. Like, the whole world will see you there, where before it was those 5 people that all they wanted to know was your name,
That's true. Esther, I'll get you back in on this conversation. Let's talk about visibility. I know in your campaigns you've had other women who are WNBA players right now. What are you hearing from them in terms of, some of the things we've been talking about here in terms of seeing yourself, women that look like you and me and our panelists out there, playing sports, engaging in sports in a natural way, and sort of how are you able to tie that into your marketing campaigns?
Answering that question is, I don't know, it brings kind of like a lot of emotions out of me because for me, when Player Society launched, it launched at the end of January. By April, my favorite WNBA player was wearing my T-shirt on TV, on Facebook Live. And so for me, that moment was so big for so many reasons. Obviously, it was a nice boost for my business, but personally, I felt like I reached a goal as far as, making that connection and having somebody at that level say, "This message matters," and, more people need to hear this and see this and, interact with this T-shirt design, right? So social media has been huge for me. And it's been a way to connect more people, not just WNBA players, to the message and to the idea behind Playa Society. I've been able to, customers, just everyday women who message me on social media, or they'll send me an email and just comment and share their stories of how they've, overcome different types of gender bias as athletes or in sports. They might be journalists and broadcasters, or they might be players, girls who are playing football in high school, and they're so thrilled to see this T-shirt design because, it really represents how they feel. And so I don't think I'd be able to do that without social media. And also to have WNBA players, National Women's Hockey League players, some of the soccer players from the U.S. national team kind of rally behind the message and the idea. So it's all been really big and a really important catalyst to getting the message out there to more people quicker than I would be able to do without social media.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, as women, we're supporting each other, but we all know men have to be allies, and they're a part of the discussion when we talk about gender and diversity, and part of the support. You know, Kat, talk a little bit about the Raptors organization and Masai's leadership. I know you obviously are, you know, doing a lot of on-air stuff, the digital and the producing and the hosting, but you also work with is it the MLSC Foundation?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. We have something very special at MLSC. I think with the support of Masai, he's always been very supportive of, women progressing in the industry and women having, you know, a place in sport. And as you see, a lot of the front office in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment and Toronto Raptors specifically, there's a lot of women there, and they keep moving up, right?
Woo!
There's I know. And like I said, we've just been very lucky to have Masai there. What was the second half of the question?
I think you answered it.
Did I?
Yeah,
Okay.
you
Well, we
did.
have something very special at Maple Leaf
Very-
Sports and
very
Entertainment.
succinctly.
No, but honestly, I know people ask me, you know, what are the challenges about being a woman in sport? And I honestly can say that I've really felt that I made my way up through the Toronto Raptors organization from starting as, you know, a member of the Raptors Dance Back to being a host, the in-arena host, and of course with NBA TV Canada. And I really feel like I had so much support. I had some wonderful men behind me in my journey. I think something that I struggled with personally more than maybe, you know, other people struggled with, coming from, you know, the crop top kind of clad world of the Raptors dance pack, aka cheerleader, to wearing that suit and, you know, talking about statistics and with the other men on the you know, panel or the desk. But I realized later that was more of a personal challenge. Maybe it wasn't seen that way from the outside. But yeah, no, I've really, really felt supported. And we talked about it too, how a lot of people say, oh, we need more women in sports. And I really think that that's changed. Like, I mean, look at this panel sitting here. And I always use the example, I was down in Golden State for one of the last games in the finals and standing courtside, you know, getting ready to do a hit. And I looked down and it was me and 4 other women. Right?
That's awesome. And you know, we love seeing that that the NBA has really, you know, tried to make some big steps with hiring women, you know, as on the coaching staff, in the corporate office, and you know, hosting in front of the camera. And we're hoping that, you know, once the other leagues see that, there could be a domino effect. Now, Callie, talk to me a little bit about the health and fitness world. Are you finding that there are men who are supportive, and you've got some allies, or what's the industry like in that situation?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and I feel like I was just talking about this. So Bolo is at the corner of Spadina and Richmond, and in the last year, there have been 3 studios that have opened on our block, and they're all female-owned. 2 boxing studios and a spin studio and Bolo, and it's actually quite remarkable. And something really special is happening in Toronto, where I do believe that we have an incredible community of women, and there is a real exceptional prevailing attitude of support over competition. And yeah, it's really amazing to see it come together. But when I first sort of came up with the idea of Bolo and started pitching it around and talking to people, I had to talk to a lot of men, because men predominantly were the ones with the seats at the table with the money and with the decisions over real estate and things like that. I don't know if any of you guys had that sort of experience as well. So I would say that there was a male-dominated conversation when I was first trying to launch and get funding and get support. And for the most part, they had no idea what I was talking about. They didn't see my vision. Look at us now, you know?
I was going to ask you, like, how were you able to navigate that and get them to see your vision and
Yeah, well, I didn't.
Get
They
some
said
funding.
no, and I walked away being like, well, I'll see you on the other side, I guess, which is fairly ballsy, so to speak, because I have no business experience. I was a journalist. I really felt like I had no business being there, but I had a really strong conviction that what I was doing was something that was really necessary. And I think that that is my biggest asset, is just my ability to trust my gut and keep moving forward. And I think that that's the difference between someone with an idea and someone who's an entrepreneur. Someone who has an idea is just someone with an idea. Someone who has an idea and moves forward without sort of stopping with reckless abandon, not reckless, you have to have a business plan, but moving forward and just sort of not letting anyone stop you, that is an entrepreneur.
And Esther, did you face that situation trying to launch Play a Society? There's a lot of statistics out there with women. I think it says 98% of VC funding goes to men. Did you run into any of those issues?
For the most part, I'm still very much bootstrapping this whole business. But, there's always the conversation of, oh, why aren't you making t-shirts for men, t-shirts or sportswear for men? Or there are always those men in the room who don't understand the idea and the message behind the brand. I've applied for funding or accelerator programs, and a panel or a room of all men will tell me that they just don't get it or they don't see a need for the message. So I definitely do have experience with that. And, I know as I continue to grow and move forward in that direction, that those are things and challenges that I will face. And so, just navigating it and the good thing about it is that there's so many women involved in this conversation and involved in conversations about women-owned businesses and entrepreneurship, and as it relates to sports as well. So just finding those communities and leveraging those networks and those communities will definitely be crucial.
Nichelle, did you want to jump into that as well? In terms of, did you face any challenges with getting some funding or any of that type of financial support for your business? And how did you navigate that?
I'm still navigating through it all because, as I mentioned, I don't have any business experience. I literally went from my cruiser, and even that moment that I did decide to change my whole life was in a split second. And in fact, I did it. I remember standing in the doorway, and my husband was the one who decided to leave first.
Because your husband's also police.
We met on the job, yeah, and while I was doing my fitness journey on the side, he was taking photography on the side, and we literally snowballed at the same time, and he got to a position where he was renting a space in a small studio in Mississauga, and literally was looking for a bigger space, went looking, hunting, found this place we're in now. And he said, I'm going to leave policing. This is, my love, this and that. And he was writing his resignation letter, and he had never asked me once. He just said, we should get a little space because, some of your online clients are asking, to personal train with you. Do you want to get a little space? And that way, when I do my photography for fitness, I can also have some stuff that I can, photograph. I said, okay, sure. And, one thing led into another. And we have this 6,000 square foot place. I'm like, that wasn't really the small space you're talking about. So I stood in the doorway, took a deep breath. I said, change the name from Dave to Nichelle and hit send before I forget. And that was literally the day that I made up that second I made up my mind. And I hadn't even told my mom yet. I told nobody. And everyone knew this was my passion. I wanted to do this since I was a kid. So I didn't even regurgitate the whole thing until the only thing I knew is that I couldn't do both. I can multitask pretty good, but to actually run a business and a gym, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I went out and I found the support. And I went around to, people who I looked up into the industry, and not necessarily for funding, but for more like, what am I doing? Like, how do I even set up a gym? I know what I like to do, and I know all I had, is like my fitness network and my old boxing network, and I decided to put everything kind of into one and just really go with what I was comfortable with, because that whatever you're comfortable with and what you're good at doing just literally flows out to everybody else. So it really wasn't hard, that part. The hard part is literally having a huge space, trying to keep that going. But the hustle is real. Like it doesn't stop. And one thing that I thought I would be missing was when I was a police officer was you never know what you're going to face when you wake up or you go into that office. You never know. You never know if you're going to have a fight, if you're going to find it, whatever, right? And I thought, oh my God, I hope it's not going to be boring doing what I'm doing, because it's a big change. I had 4 kids to feed, and like they're really small. They're not small anymore, but I mean, 4 boys, and they eat. And I just took the dough. I literally dived. And when I think when you have it in you and you're a good multitasker and you just hustle, you can do anything if you really put your mind to it. And I don't stop. I mean, anyone that knows me, I will get, and you have to do it because you don't have a choice. You don't want to live on the street. And that being said, I even had to sell my house. I sold my house to make it work because that has to. So I'm just renting a house now, but you know what? That's okay, because that's a decision we made, because I didn't want to give up what I give up, because it's hard. It's hard work, and sometimes you got to do things and make the sacrifices, and I don't want to give up. I don't want to fail. So I just, I'll get back into that market one day, and it'll work. So get the support system, work hard, hustle every single day, and the support also obviously from your husband, from your family, your friends, and just making priorities, setting them, but being flexible at the same time, because anything, and I tell you, and I've told you that on the phone, the phone rings and it's the school, no matter what I'm doing, I'm gone, so you have to have that flexibility too.
Caroline, I wanted to talk to you about something that you mentioned when I spoke to you on the phone, and it might kind of blend into the talk about why women aren't getting funded, why when women are going to pitch their business ideas specifically to a panel of men, they don't get it, they don't see the value in it. You and I were talking, and you were saying that sometimes there's that misconception that women's sports or women in sports is about being charitable, and people don't always see the viability of that market. We see that now, unfortunately, with the CWHL folding. We see that when women are trying to get coverage, or it's like we're screaming at the rooftops, we want equality, but in sports it's slow, it's there. We do see some improvements, but it's still slow. And can you talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Well, it's the challenge is that to make good decisions, people want facts and figures and understand what's on the line. And so there's great research out there that says 84% of men and women want to watch sports, just sports in general, whether it's men or women. They want to watch. They want, if it's the sport they love, they're not really caring who's doing it. They just want to watch a good game. So I think if we can work on changing the paradigm whereby we're talking about what they're doing, hence for me, see what she can do, then we can kind of move beyond it's girls' sports, so it may not be less than. Because certainly we were covering this CWHL quite a bit this past season, and men and women together, families together, they all embrace the hockey, just to use it as an example. And it had a tremendous amount of momentum at the end of the season. And look at the NBA. I mean, women play a huge part in supporting basketball teams, hockey teams, baseball teams. We're sports fans. We're sport participants. So I think our goal is, as women and consumers of sports, we need to let the people who make the decisions know that we want to see that, we want to consume that product. We want to consume, whether it's as a spectator or as a participant, and show them that it's worth the investment. I think that the discussion has to change from expense to investment. So instead of the asset sheet, we need to talk the income. Like, instead of the income sheet seeing women as an expense, it's an asset. We have to spend our money and invest in it and build it up.
Jennifer, you know what I like about when I go online and look at your website and I see your social media content, you're always bringing up other women, you're talking about other female boxers. Tell me a little bit about that bringing the village with you. And I always say, when people call me and they say they've got a sport event for women and I can't make it, or I said, send me your flyer, I'll put it up on my website. Why is it important that with women we support each other?
Sorry, I'm like, my mind is spinning with all these stories. I am so incredibly impressed with the panel I'm sitting on. I was really excited about today, but I think that it just, again, look what happens when you lift up other women. we are really living in a new world, so to speak, of opportunity for all, not just women. One of the biggest things I struggled with when I started my business was not being a woman, but being too young to have a business. So my biggest issue was I was maybe in my first business, 17 years old, lying to people, telling people that I was 26 years old, because I thought that was so old. Right? Now I'm 35, and now I can actually back up, because of age, the things that I've done, even though it's still a lot. But bringing women with us, I think one thing that I learned, funny enough, today, because Facebook is so cool and it tells you the memories, that memory, that's new to me. It told me that I was sitting it was a it was gender equity conference in Bulgaria today. And they brought me out from Canada to represent Canada. But when I looked around and I asked all the women, because it was sports, it was kind of put together, not just in boxing, but the Olympic kind of association. And we were like, where are the men? We're talking gender equity and gender equality. Where are the men? We need, and I think that sounds very consistent across this panel, and I know consistently across pretty much any business or sport, we need everybody. We need to be inclusive. However, I think the major thing that I think you were speaking to just now is the fact that we don't have as much visibility as women, because who knew there was, so many women boxers out there? Who knew that you'd have a panel that is actually predominantly boxers on it right now? But until the media picks up. Yeah, that's why we put this together, right? That's why you brought all the boxers. Everyone should be boxing, because that is what gave me the strength and the understanding of myself and how important the people are around me, because you can't have a fight with one person. You, as a woman, need another woman to fight. So, and it's not, there are a couple other sports out there where men and women can compete against each other. In boxing, you need another woman. In other sports, you also need another woman. So if we're not doing the investment into the women we need to be our fans, to be our opponents, to be our mentors, then who's going to do that? And now it's starting, but we need to do that. So I don't think I really thought about what I was doing when I started putting posts out there that were really empowering women, because I don't identify as I guess, a feminist per se. I identify as someone who really has been lucky to be born at this time where we can achieve so much. Let's get there.
Yeah, I know, it was like rally cry. Esther, I just wanted to ask you, what tips do you have for other young people who want to combine their passions in sport and develop something new, or they see a gap in the market? What tips would you give them for taking the plunge and starting, moving from the idea to becoming an entrepreneur?
I think the most important thing is realizing that there's never a perfect moment where everything's going to come together. For me, I started my business while working full-time as a marketing director. And so I'm running a marketing department and also selling t-shirts for my business at the same time. It's not ideal, but it's the way that I was able to get started. And so not waiting for that perfect moment is probably the best thing that you can do. Give yourself a deadline and say, I'm going to start with this idea and see how I can build and where I can go from here. And then set, small goals along the way, set small deadlines along the way, so that you're kind of constantly evolving and constantly moving. Whatever you kind of start with is never going to be what you end with, or even where you end up in the middle of whatever your story or your narrative ends up becoming, whatever that business or journey is. When I started, I was selling basketball t-shirts with basketball designs on it at first, and then I kind of evolved from there. And then I had this idea for the female athlete t-shirt, which is my main design. So everything evolves, and you never quite know where that's going to go. Especially my customers kind of tell me where I'm going a lot of the time, because I'm always listening and trying to give them what they need if they want. So be open and listen and be able to adjust and pivot and all of that. But most importantly, don't be afraid to get started, and don't kind of sit back and wait for the moment to get started.
Kat, I'll get you in on this conversation because job professions like a creator, maybe a digital influencer, maybe didn't exist 10 years ago. And young people now, they're getting that advice that you have to have 4 or 5 things going on, whether it's in your portfolio, so, you can stand apart from the rest of the people applying for the same job as you. So do you have any tips on becoming a digital influencer or a creative? And what advice would you give for young people?
Even back when I started, yes. I mean, what was Twitter came out in 2009. I remember being at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment at the time, and they're like, "Hey, you got to get on Twitter." And I said, "What's Twitter, right?" But tip-wise, for getting back into the social side of things, I think with anything, it's just jump. Like, really, right? Look at everybody on this panel. Jump. I always, I had a really hard time finding my footing in the industry. Not in the industry, but in life in general. I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for. I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated from music theater performance program. Like, I didn't do broadcast, right? But I was really open to opportunities and what dropped on my plate. And just kind of went with the flow for that. So something that really helped me find my footing actually in the industry was a quote. I'm a huge quote person, sorry guys. And it was, what you're doing while you're procrastinating is what you should be doing for the rest of your life. And that really put me, on the right track. I loved performing, I loved sports. I didn't know how I was gonna do it.
Look at you now.
But I kept, contributing and putting my energy into those 2 realms, even if it was like, playing softball or I don't know, right? Like I started as a dancer, went to school for music theater, and then my first job in the industry was the combination of sports and performing. I was a dancer for the Toronto Raptors dance back. Who would have thunk that everything would come together? So I think, it's really just being open to opportunity, finding your footing that way, and I have so much more.
I know. I was like, how much
right
time
now.
do we have, right? No, that's all right. That you gave great tips because I want the rest of the panelists to
absolutely.
quickly jump in as well. And what tips would you give anybody who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything. And I was saying to add, Kat and I were talking about this sort of thing just before, and I can totally relate because, again, when I got my television job, fresh out of school, I also did not have a radio and television degree. I know there's some students in here that are doing broadcast. Yeah? No? Nobody? Okay, never mind.
Oh, there's some hands
Oh,
up in the
hi.
back.
Okay, wonderful.
They were just shy.
Thank God. So it's kind of a theme in my life that I have taken on roles that I didn't have formal education in. And I think it's really important to remember that you don't have to study something to become great at it. I am just a participant in the School of Hard Knocks. I believe that I can learn. I believe that I will figure it out. And I believe that I will excel. And I think that kind of attitude is something that's really important to remember because as we all have pivoted, and we've talked about this, I think if everybody waited to get formal education in an industry to move forward in it, we'd all just sort of be sitting here doing nothing. So I think it's just about remembering that you have the capacity to learn something new, and you can learn on the fly, and you could probably be really, really great at it. I almost dropped an F-bomb. I'm not going to do that tonight. My grandma's here. But I just, yeah, that's it.
I like that. It's awesome.
Ditto on what Kelly said.
Caroline, do you have any tips for anyone that might want to? Oh, do you want to? We don't have to go in order.
I actually only recently, I guess we all talk about living in our bubbles, so I only recently I didn't realize Twitter was 2009. I thought it was, I was actually going to drop a political statement there, so I'm not going to do that. It's worse than an F-bomb right now. I didn't start paying attention to Twitter until recent years, but before doing this panel, I actually used social media to research, to see who I was sitting in the panel with. So it is an incredible tool for just the purpose of education as well, researching the people around you. So it is important what you put, the content you put out there. I feel like I'm actually completely off topic.
That's all right.
Is that
we go with the flow here. We're pivoting.
I'm
We're
pivoting
flexible.
again. You're not supposed to call yourself out. I'm still on the procrastination thing. I'm unfortunately not as good of a procrastinator. My procrastinating includes drinking, so I probably shouldn't.
No, I thought it was Michelle, right? Because you said, what are you doing in your spare time? You were fitness. You were working out.
Yeah.
So that's why you can it too.
So before I get too far, so you go back to Carolyn.
Carolyn doesn't want to go now, right now.
I was about to bring it. No, never mind. I guess in terms of tips, I think I would say I would certainly reiterate what everybody has said, knowing that just be willing to believe in what you think you want to do and follow that passion. I think because that's the fire that burns inside all of us, and that is what will keep you going when you have those days where you're like, what the was I thinking? I was almost going to do that, but because yeah, I'm really good at it. So, okay, but because you're going to have days where you kind of go, what was I thinking? But you go back to what drives you, and you're at the right day, and you go, it's just a moment. Put your head back up, go and drive. So you got to always believe, never stop believing. But know that there are great people in this world. And, the amazing thing was when I decided to throw out this idea of mine at 49, I said, okay, I'm going to throw it out to the people that I feel safe with. And so I threw it out to my hockey buddies, my ice hockey gals, who I play hockey with. And they were like, yeah, go for it. This is it. And so that was all I needed to hear. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then the benefit of throwing it out to her was it just so happened that one of the gals that I played hockey with was pretty talented in what she did, and she's like, I can help you with that. And literally, much like you, Nichelle, it was like, all right, let's go. And so next week we sat down, had a meeting, put pen to paper, and then we were off to the races. So, sometimes you just have to keep the faith and just go with it. But try to find the people that you can really connect with and know that you care about each other, so that you can
Can
enjoy the ride.
I have something to add now of use to that. Sorry, I have ADD, but that jogged my my memory on what the topic was at that moment. I'll keep it short. But the main tip that I would have, relating to specifically why we're here, is the fact that my entire business now is completely focused around the community, 100% of it. Both my business, my foundation that I've started, even the performance, because I still dance and I still perform around the world as a magician's assistant, jumping out of boxes, making people happy, just for that pure
That is so cool.
fact. So I think that if I have any tip, it would be center your focus on not success, but on investing in the community, and the byproduct of that will be the success. It sounds like a funky quote, and it probably is somewhere, but 100% of what I live for now is not the financial outcome of it. And if it were, there's a lot of other opportunities that I could pursue, but they wouldn't make me happy. So I'll leave it there.
And that'll be Kat's new favorite quote, because that was really awesome. Tips for me, like you said, and I one thing we sort of all touched on it, but I also believe in talking, communicating with your own inner circle. But you know what? You never know who you're going to meet at a coffee shop. You never know who you're going to meet on an elevator. You just, hey, how's it going? Even complimenting someone. Not only you're making their day, nice sweater. Oh, thank you. And then next thing you know, you're making friends, acquaintances. And all of a sudden you're networking, not only with the community, but with new people, whether it be, and you can just, I don't know, there's so many much like greater, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but so much more beyond your inner circle that, you really have to reach out not only to the community, but to like elsewhere. When you go on vacation, even talking today, what a small world we live in, and it's amazing that you can even go on vacation somewhere, let's say across the world, and happen to know somebody that's so you just never know, because not only those connections help you personally, they'll help you build even more networks in all areas. So I think that's really important too.
Esther, how has your community been able to rally, beside you to give you that encouragement to keep on going, or just to kind of be a sounding board?
Lately, I've kind of been saying, or at least even in the beginning, that I now feel more obligated to run my business than, just the initial desire to run my business, because of all the support that I've received from women that I've looked up to since I first started playing sports, to women that I've never met before. The way that they believe in the message and the brand makes me feel obligated to really deliver and continue to push forward. So that's a type of community that I've been able to build and develop and become a part of. Um, a lot of times, with Instagram mainly, um, you know, I still get excited every time there's a post or I'm tagged in something. And some days I'll wake up and it's Bird who's tagging me, or, I'll see a glimpse of Megan Rapinoe wearing my shirt, in the corner of some room somewhere. And so it's crazy how that drives someone to continue to keep pushing forward. So whether it's me or somebody else who wants to start their brand or something like that, that advocacy and that support is so important and so motivating to kind of continue to push forward. Community has always been at the core of what I wanted to build and what I want to continue to build. It's all about listening to what female athletes want or what they need, and what problems are they facing, and how can in a small way a sportswear brand or a t-shirt design kind of advocate for that or support that or make them feel comfortable and kind of sharing their thoughts and their ideas with people. So that's kind of the bulk of the community for me.
What I like about all of you is you have so many, different passions and things going on. But I think some people might want to know, how do you? I don't want to say keep things balanced, because I actually was at a conference and one of the speakers said she doesn't believe in balance, but she believes in choices. So how are you keeping the boat steady in your life through the choices that you're making to keep your business going and to keep tapping into these communities and transforming people's lives and doing all the great things that you do? I'll ask you that question, Michelle.
And I think when we had this conversation over the phone, I said, that was a great point. And I said back to you, well, my choice is balance, right? So although, we're talking, especially for my life because of the 4 boys, and, I set my priorities every single day, but at the top of that list every single day, no matter what, is my family. Everything else will filter. I do a list every day. I wake up and I'm going, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to tackle today? And it's kind of, I set everything accordingly. When the boys get off to school, then let's choose to balance my day. First and foremost, let's get to, obviously work, because that's what's going to happen. But obviously having, like I mentioned before, that flexibility that anything can change at any given moment. To bring something completely into this, but my mom just, has bad dementia. So again, one of those things that life takes a turn at every single moment. So you always need to be ready for anything that's kind of thrown at you. And I think as an entrepreneur, you're really good at multitasking. You're really good at taking a bunch of things on. And as they say, you want to get something done, you give it to a busy person. And I just find I'm always being asked to do stuff, but I can always figure it out somehow, because I always, seem to weave it into my priority list. And if I don't get it to, if I don't get to whatever it is that day, that's okay. As long as the main things are done and that, my boys are taken care of, my family's okay, everything else will fall into place as long as you keep hustling.
Kelly, did you want to weigh in on this? Because we talked a bit about this, and your angle was more on self-care and health and wellness. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Certainly, I think that we have to have a fluid mentality when it comes to balance. Coming out of sort of the first 2 years of growing Bolo and building that brand, I don't think that balance was a word in my vocabulary that I threw around with any kind of authenticity. And I was okay with that. I made that choice, to your point. It was all-encompassing, sort of almighty. It was the most important thing. And that was the decision I made. My husband and I, who's my business partner, we dove in deep, and we sort of didn't look back. And I had no balance. I mean, family, friends, hobbies. I don't know, I haven't read a book in 2 years, which is horrible. I don't think I had sat on my couch for 2 years. And I'm not kidding, didn't cook a meal. I had to have, people bring meals to me. I'm not even joking. It sounds ridiculous. But it was what needed to be done, and I was very comfortable with that, and I sort of owned it. I wasn't like complaining that I had no balance because I had made that choice. And I think it's just about kind of, really owning whatever your decision is and just being comfortable with it and not apologetic. Rolling into year 3 of the brand, I'm very excited to find balance again. I do also suffer from some health complications, and I think, going 100 miles an hour for 2 years has caught up with me, and I'm looking for like a nap. So I went from teaching.
Not asking for too much, right? You just want a nap.
Yeah, so I run the business, I run the social media, I do all the events, I do all the hiring. I, was really in the operations, and I taught 15 classes a week. I now only teach 8. That's a huge deal for me. What? That's a huge deal, and I think as women, we have a really hard time letting go. And again, I made that decision to find more balance unapologetically. I didn't ask permission. I didn't ask what people thought about it, and I didn't, I didn't take anything away from myself because I need a Saturday morning to sleep in. So I just think it's important to just own wherever you're at. And remember that you're going to have more balance in some moments and less balance in others, and that's okay too.
And I think we're going to end the panel discussion with that, because you perfectly said own it, own the things in your life, and I really want to thank all of you. You did. See how I did that? I want to thank all of you, mainly for just being so transparent. I think the audience can definitely feel how transparent and honest you've been about your journey, and getting the advice and the tips, and really understanding what women like you go through to build your brands, to build your companies, and to continue to pour into the communities that you guys are a part of. Esther, thank you so much as well for joining us, and I want to give you guys some time to ask some questions. The lady in the black shirt.
Thank you. Great job, ladies. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is so great. I have a burning question, and it's more your opinion or your reaction to this, because I want to know if I'm overreacting, okay? So there's a boxer at the professional level. Her name is Clarissa Shields, and she is a 2-time Olympian and turned professional very quickly, and after, I think it was 7 fights, she called herself the GWOAT, G-W-O-A-T, the greatest woman of all time. So this GOAT, greatest of all time, is thrown around in the male circle. I don't know, it's in the boxing world, I don't know if it's on all sports.
Yeah, they call
I'm
Serena.
Sure. It's in all sports?
Yeah, they call Serena Williams the
Because
GOAT.
Muhammad Ali was known as the GOAT, and then it went from there. So she self-proclaimed herself as the GWOAT. And I just had a reaction because I'm in the boxing world. I was a boxer myself, and I'm thinking of all the women who came before me to pave the way for me, who are still active in the sport and who had many more fights than her, and who also didn't have the exposure, the experience, and the attention that this girl is getting now. So I had mixed emotions about it. I made a post about it, and I got a lot of reactions. Ladies, what do you think about somebody who's 26 calling herself the GWOAT? Is it just a media thing? And I feel like it's moving us backwards.
And can I have one person answer just so that we can get to the other questions? So
Sure.
one person. Oh, do you both want to answer? Okay, two people.
I think it's a sports thing.
Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
I think I'm just trying to clarify if your question is about sort of like sectioning women from men and making it great as a woman of all time. Like, I would rather her just call herself the GOAT. Like, why do you gotta GWOAT it? Just take the W out of it.
If I could, because I saw the post, I think, and I actually had the honor of refereeing and judging Clarissa in her upcoming way through the amateur ranks. But I think, and if I'm not mistaken, your question or your statement is more about the fact that there was a lot of other women who paved the way to get her there.
I do understand the question. It was more just my issue is that. But
Yeah.
continue.
I like that you both had different responses to that.
Sorry, I know we have a short time. You know what? I think that this comes to something that I struggle with on a daily basis. I am always, it's not even humble. It is actually, I'm almost embarrassed to let people know, until I'm on a panel like this, I'm embarrassed to let people know of my success. So what I believe she's doing, because actually they're doing a movie on her right now that'll be at the same level as hopefully Muhammad Ali's, because she's a great story, is I believe, just like Andrescu, I'm pronouncing it wrong, Bianca.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that you have to be confident in how much you have to offer at this moment. It is the athlete's job to think they're the greatest of all time. Greatest, and I think I agree here, greatest of all time, not necessarily greatest woman of all time. But I think to answer the question, I look at that and I think that it's really important for us to allow women and to help women propel themselves up. Am I maybe getting it wrong?
So this is all about feeling privileged that you deserve something. Is that what you're saying?
She
Before
was given
you
the
were
name.
able to even, like she's 26, you're thinking through the people that came before her.
Without explanation. And really, what does the greatest of all time mean? And what does that mean to the young girls?
Yeah.
They call themselves the greatest woman of all time? So what message are you really sending?
I think that's a great question. I want to get to the other ones, but I want to encourage all you guys to get on Twitter and
I'll
respond
reply
back
on
to
your
that as
post.
well. Yeah, so to continue the conversation, you had a question in the front, and then yeah. So I just want to be fair to everybody.
I guess I'll stand up for it as well. Fantastic. That was very entertaining. I loved every bit of it as well. You ladies are fantastic. So my question kind of stems from the fact that you guys obviously were speaking a lot about social media, and social media plays a huge part in your work, in yourselves as branding, not only yourself, but as well as, obviously your work and what you're doing. My thing is, as somebody who wants to get into media and broadcasting and journalism and all that fun stuff, I find that it's hard to really get yourself out there on social media, and it's hard to put yourself out there, all your insecurities, all that fun stuff. So my question for you ladies is, how did you kind of come amongst that? How did you really put yourself out there, put your face out there, stem away from the criticism and all that stuff that we got going on, and how did you really just feel confident in your work and putting it out there for everybody, pretty much?
I'm going to, Esther, did you hear that question?
Yes.
Do you want to answer that?
I can chime in for sure.
Out there.
That's something that I've always struggled with personally. I'm naturally kind of introverted, and it's hard for me to kind of talk about myself and celebrate myself. But being someone who works in marketing and branding, I feel like starting with what your purpose is and what your why is, it's a lot easier for me to talk about how passionate I am about advocating for women's sports than it is for me to just talk about myself, actually. And so when I'm talking about the cause or the purpose, then I find myself being my authentic self and just engaging it through that conversation. So I would just suggest, finding what that purpose is and what your mission is, and leading with that and starting there, and build your brand, your social media brand around that.
Kat? Oh, sorry, Carol, go ahead. And then I'll let Kat jump in.
I was listening to a presentation about leadership just on Friday, and it was sort of a cycle of leadership. And I'm just going to talk about two quick points, because I think Esther really hits on to something that's really important. So we have external motivations to be a leader, whether it's prestige or success, title, that type of thing, money. But then if you go to the next level, it's purpose, it's goals, it's values. So it's an even higher level of leadership that you have to be completely comfortable with, and know that you have to own it and you have to be a part of it, and it's even bigger than you, and be comfortable with that. And sometimes you'll be comfortable with it, and sometimes you'll go through this crazy crisis of confidence, and you're like, really, what WTF? Like, what am I doing? Because it's scary out there, and it's not really talked about a lot. So I think all of us hit on it tonight, that it's bigger, and you have to be okay with that.
Kat, I just wanted to get you to jump into this question, because I know you were talking more about getting into broadcasting and hosting and being on air. What advice do you have for students who are trying to find out what their unique offering is? Because sometimes you'll see some people's approaches, let me be like that person that's on this channel, or let me be like this person that has built their social media platform and now they've got 10,000 followers, and why can't I go viral? Instead of looking at how can I be unique and use that as an attribute.
You guys ready for another quote?
Get it.
Here it is. I would say, be captivated by purpose so that you're not caught up in comparison. Okay, so every time, you know, you get...
You might want to say that one more time. They're writing it down.
Be captivated by purpose so you're not caught up in comparison. Because it's hard. I mean, that's absolutely something I struggled with. You know, I went from, you know, this music theater performer to presenting on NBA TV Canada and, you know, standing behind that desk in a suit with 5 other men. And I mean, I didn't have any broadcast experience. I had acting experience, and I had television experience from school, but I had to learn a lot of it from myself. And so I went and I watched, you know, these broadcasters and these women and men on the desk, and, you know, from what they wore to how they held their hands to how they spoke. And I got sucked into being like them. And the minute I, you know, said, okay, Kat, like, you just need to be yourself, I wasn't comfortable being like them, right? So I used my quirks, and I used my humor, and I used my over-the-top, you know, presenting skills, if that's what you call them, but I used my personality, and I am different than the other broadcasters out there. But I'm, you know, proud of that. And like I said, the minute you really settle into who you are, and it takes time, because that takes growing as a woman to find out who that is, and it takes growing as a woman to be confident with yourself, to be able to share those things on your social media platforms as well. You will have hiccups. I still have hiccups to these days. I have days where I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, you're not good enough. You're not like so-and-so. So it comes and goes. But it does take growth as a woman, and, you know, talking, you know, with people like me. Like, let's talk about it. Let's find your strengths. And
Go for a coffee.
yeah, and really just like breathe and fall into who you really are.
Another question. You in the front there.
You guys spoke about the fact that you don't necessarily have to be specific or good at one thing, and you can do multiple things. But I've been struggling with that, because I feel like if you're good at so many things, are you ever gonna be like an expert at one thing? Is it hard to be really good at multiple things? Or can you know what I'm asking? Like, can you do many things but be really good at all of them at the same time?
Who wants to take that one? Anybody? Going once, going twice.
No, I feel like I've spoken too much.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying. You need to be captivated by your purpose, and then for what it is you need to do, you need to take some time to understand what your strengths are. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because you can't do everything, and it's okay to ask for help, which is why we're all here today, getting to know each other, because we can't know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. I think know where you think your strengths are right now, and start there, and go, okay, I'm really good with this, but I think there might be someone over here that can help me work through that and help me kind of walk me through it. So I think sometimes you have to understand the ebb and flow of life and the ebb and flow of entrepreneurship. When you need to know when to find help and when you can do it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
I had one question. Are you still in school, or are you working? You're working. Are you in communications or media?
No, I'm
In sport. What do you want to do when you're... Well, not when you grow up. Just like, what would your ultimate job be like?
Okay, well, right now I've been sucked into sales because I've been told I'm very good at sales, but I do want to work in operations, but
Okay.
I feel like I should master what I'm good at now and learn all of that and kind of stay where I'm good at. I don't want to do something that I'm mediocre at. I want to be
Okay, so who wants to respond to that? Because I think we needed a little bit more background information.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's impossible to answer that question for you, but I think what I have found to be really useful is remembering that, well, life is long. You could do both. You could spend a really good chunk of time doing one and then move into the next. And you can have that plan. You know, nothing is forever in this generation. You know, people do many things and wear many hats, as you can see. But I think the other thing is remembering that no skill is wasted just because you're not in that exact role. So for me, I'm not in TV anymore. I'm not a producer at this moment in time. But I feel like I wear my producer hat and use those skills so much as a business owner. I produce every day. It just looks a little bit different and has a roof over it instead of having a camera in front of it. But I think it's remembering that all of those skills are gonna be important to both roles. So like honing that, owning it, and sorry, like it's a great tagline, own it, yeah. Own that and try to find a way to funnel both skills into one, go deep there, and then, you know, decide to change your mind and go deep the other way. And I think, yeah, remembering that you can utilize all of it in one or the other and both down the road.
Do you want to add something? And then I'll go to the next question.
Are you a perfectionist?
Oh, you're not.
Okay, because I was going to say I am, and that's something I had to let go of. I've really, learned that the space just below perfect is just as perfect, and that I almost kind of like it more. You know what I mean? So once I kind of let that go, and I was able to share my energy in a little, a few other outlets or the things that I wanted to do. So continue to put, even if it's like 22% of your week into one thing, like it all adds up.
Next question. Way in the back, and then I'll come over to you.
Hi. Again, thank you so much for everything that was said. I found that a lot of what was said was kind of not directly stated, but was rooted in a lot of the isms in terms of struggle. So racism, sexism, ageism, Jennifer specifically, that one really hit with me. But then ultimately intersectionality. And I just kind of wanted to see if anyone wanted to touch more on that, because I think beyond representation as women, we also have to think of representation of the different types of women that we have around the world, and then specifically when we look at places like Toronto, where we're very diverse. And how do we move forward when we have more than just being a woman oftentimes at our back? Everyone struggles in some way or another, but when you look at those different layers and peel them back as an individual, you might struggle more so because of things like your class, your race, your citizenship, your first language, your second language, and what you look like. So just kind of wanted to see if anyone wanted to kind of add a little more onto that.
Jennifer, anybody? Someone said they're scared to. Wait, sorry.
So I guess for me,
I was gonna say, didn't ask
what
him,
I
but
would
ask her if she
suggest,
wanted to
like,
join in.
I think it's an important topic of conversation. I think it's an important consideration because it's about representation. And how do we, in what we do, ensure that all women, all types of women, see themselves as entrepreneurs, right? Regardless of where you've come from, what your age is, all of that. And I think having the conversations like what we're having today is a great start, but then also working really hard to bring this conversation back to where we go, back to where we work, and whatever that means for each of us. So, for example, for See What She Can Do, I can use this as an example. In how we decide what content we're going to cover, it's really important for us, it's part of our value system, that women of all types, all capabilities, whatever that may be, physicality, mental capabilities, see themselves and see what she can do, because that's what See What She Can Do is about. We want women to have a sense of belonging to sport. For all of you,
I love this.
I might be misunderstanding the question a little bit, but I'm very, very fortunate, and actually in some ways it's been the same struggle. I've been fortunate to endure a lot of the isms that we speak of, partially because of my race, because a lot of people can't really figure out what I am, so I get grouped in with, because of my age, and actually also because of the class that I'm born into in being in Canada. I travel, and most of my interactions in business are international. So I'm going to Russia next week. I just came from India. Looking and seeing how yes, we are able to accomplish these things here in Toronto, especially in Toronto and in Ontario and in Canada in general. It's a struggle that is real, but the one thing that's pulling this all together is doing things like this, raising the awareness of the fact that there are opportunities out there and the ability to pull them together through social media. I think that social media and just the pure internet, the fact that you're doing this database, the fact that you've pulled together this panel of incredible people, I think that all of those struggles that I've endured, I used to be really upset by them, and now I kind of miss them in some ways because now I'm seen at a different level, and the struggles that I had with those were actually a little bit easier than people saying, hey, you should be able to do this. I liked kind of the, hey, you shouldn't be able to, but I think that seeing it from different countries' perspectives it's really, we're not quite there yet, but we can pull it together through social media and interaction online, I guess. So I might have strayed a little.
Esther, did you want to weigh in on this conversation on intersectionality and representation?
Yes. There's so many layers to it. And I guess for me, as I kind of build and along in this journey as an entrepreneur, I understand that one, I'm fighting for a cause, which is, gender equality in sports. And as I do that, I hope that, girls who look like me are seeing someone who's in a position that they may not have the opportunity to always see that. A Black woman entrepreneur in America, I'm not in Canada. But, so I'm glad that the two kind of take care of each other a little bit. I'm able to build off of both of those things. And that is my goal, to be able to be an example and to have that, I guess, be a role model or that representation for young girls. When I was younger, I didn't necessarily have that, right? So because of the media not showing women in sports as often as men, I didn't see women who looked like me playing basketball and playing sports, or at least being celebrated and talked about positively for it. So for me, I shied away from it. I didn't want to play sports because I thought, that's the boys, so I'm gonna go to fashion design school and stay away from sports. I'm 6'1", by the way, so people urged me to play sports, but I didn't want to because I was just uncomfortable with that idea. So I guess ultimately what I'm saying is, being able to be an advocate for something that I believe in, while also being a role model for others and girls that look like me. I'm glad that I'm able to do that, and that's definitely at the forefront of my goals and how I kind of want to build what I'm building.
There's a question in the back. Yes. Yeah. No, not that back, right here. Sorry, kind of 4 rows back, or 5.
I'm a Ryerson Sport Media student, so obviously all the stories you guys have been telling are super inspiring to me, so thank you very much. I had a question for Kat. You said that you started in the Raptors dance pack and then got to being on air. My question is, who did you meet? What kind of people did you get in touch with? Or how did you do that?
To make it happen?
Yeah.
Who did I do? Again, I went into the industry very open to opportunities. I didn't, going in, my strength was dance. I didn't want to become a professional dancer, but, I used kind of all my skills to break in, and that's how I started dancing. And then I kept putting my energy into other things. I went to television workshops and, continued practicing my acting, went to auditions. I was working in film and television while I was dancing on the dance pack. And hosting at the Royal York, and all the 10 million jobs you do off the top to live downtown and to pursue a career in this entertainment world, so to speak. But honestly, I believed that I was going to get that next something, and I didn't talk to anybody. One day on the dance pack, it was NBA XL at the time, which, funny story, I ended up actually hosting the last couple of years. It came back around years later, so that's a funny little, circle kind of thing.
Namageni was on?
Yeah,
yes.
She was hosting it when I was a guest host, so they asked me to kind of do a day in the life of the Raptors Dance Pack. So they followed me for a day in the life of the Raptors Dance Pack, not knowing that it was actually my audition. They were doing another show called Raptor Space at the time, and bringing it onto Raptors TV. So again, I think it's just putting the energy into, you know, what you want. Did I always, you know what, you know, I wanted to be when I grew up, or what, you know, what do you want to do in 10 years, or where do you want to be in 5 years, or what's your dream job? No, you know, and I still don't, because, and again, I've accepted that every, you know, week I feel like I want to try something new. Yeah. But I think it's just being open to opportunity, right? And taking it as it comes, and maybe doing those jobs that, you know, you're not like don't necessarily want to do. But again, it all builds and it keeps snowballing, and then these opportunities open for you. I wish I could tell you the name of somebody I talked to, but it was more that way. And again, putting 110% into your craft, and working on it behind the scenes before you get the opportunity to do it in front of the camera.
There's a question way in the back. Is there a microphone back there?
Thank you. So he partly stole my question, but I'm also a sport media student, and I also have a question for Kat, if that's okay. So basically, I was just wondering, you graduated from a performance program, and once you did you kind of have that what now moment, or did you have a plan in your head what you were going to do, or did you kind of go with the flow? I'm just wondering, was it scary to graduate? Did you know what you were going to do?
Yes, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and this was after graduation, and I didn't know what I wanted to do going into school either. I knew my passions, I knew I wanted to perform, and I knew I loved sports. And again, like, I'm a big energy person, and it was just continuously putting energy into those passions. And again, what you're doing when you procrastinate, I learned that at a young age. Jumping out of school, it was all about just getting myself out there, auditioning, and again, using my skill set. You know, I was a singer, an actor, a dancer, and, you know, doing all of those things to kind of break in. The dance pack was great for me because it not only allowed me to continue to practice my craft, performing, there was a lot of exposure. I mean, you're dancing in front of 20,000 people, networking opportunities, but yeah, it was scary. Tell me where I should be going back to right now in that question. No, and I still feel like I don't have a plan. Right? But again, I like I said, it's all about energy and what you're putting it into, and being very open to opportunity. Again, we can talk a little bit more about this after.
I see a hand that's just going right up into the sky and kept on going up. Finally, she says, okay.
But like reinventing yourself, because I was in the television industry, and I decided to leave just because it's getting smaller and everything. But I realized the creativeness is, I'm still thriving for that and wanting it. So being able to reinvent yourself during that pivot moment, how do you guys have any tips?
Michelle, do you want to take that one? Well, you reinvented yourself through leaving the police force, opening the gym, and then, oh wait, I don't know if we mentioned it in your bio, because these ladies have so many receipts. If I was to sit here and read their bios, like, it would be midnight tonight. Nichelle also started a magazine. So,
Yes.
like, you have all this.
I know, I'm always
pivoting and
reinventing
reminding
myself. I don't even know how to answer this, but I feel like I'm always evolving. I'm always reinventing myself, and sometimes I don't even mean to, but people approach me because of my experiences, and I can't remember what we were talking about even before with you, and using my experiences before, like, who would have thought I can use all the things that I did as a police officer? I use them every single day. I know everything, all my surroundings, I know, and so I may not be that business person, but I have my stuff going on, right? Again, with the editor, we started a magazine. It's called NL Women's Magazine. It doesn't stand for Nichelle Loss. It actually stands for New Life, No Limits. And what it was I got approached, and, you know, where I was in the fitness industry, I've gone so far, I was on covers, I've written articles, you know, blah, blah, blah. What's your next level? And to me, it was, I don't know, what is my next level? And so again, I evolved, and now I'm editor-in-chief of that magazine, and it's a women's magazine about real life, real struggles, and sharing with the world, you know, how to evolve, how to reinvent ourselves. And I love the fact that I was approached because I have those many angles to do. And I don't know, I think that as we grow, obviously we learn from every experience, good and bad. And it makes us who the person we are, and it makes us stronger, and we use those as building blocks to our next adventure. So never, you know, especially if you leave something, never be afraid to go back, because so many people ask me because, you know, the struggle of owning a business, would you go back, would you go back? I miss it so much, but I again, don't regret my decision ever. And if you do regret the decision, that's okay too, because you go back and you can use the experiences that you've even dealt with along that way, along that journey, and kind of mesh it all together. So I don't know if that really answers your question, because I don't even know if I'm making sense, but you know, I just say use every opportunity as a stepping block.
Another question in the front here. Hi.
So this is more towards those who run like teams or have like a workplace. What are some of the main values that you implement to support your successful culture in your ventures?
So important. I also never managed anybody until Bolo, and now we have 30 employees. And I can honestly say it's one of the most rewarding pieces of the puzzle, and that was very shocking to me. The business is the people in it. So values and finding people who align with you, with your message, and with the community is the most important thing. So what I'm learning is, well, first of all, I always say I hire based on not necessarily a skill, but an infectious energy. So I can teach you to check people in, and I can teach you to use the software, and I can show you where the equipment is, but I can't teach you to be a better person or to be aligned with our values. So I think it's just, for me, really important to be so careful and to curate the team so specifically so that the people already come in having those values. But then again, I think it's important, especially with people, you know, I run a gym, we have, you know, the students that work the front desk, to make sure that they feel purposeful. So to remind them that despite the fact that they might think that their job isn't as important as a trainer, it actually is arguably more important. You are setting the tone for someone's experience coming in here. You are the person that is greeting them, giving them that initial jolt of energy, and reminding them that they're in a safe space, that they're exactly where they're meant to be, and that they belong where we are. And so for me, one of the biggest things across the board, whether it's with my, you know, GMs or whether it's with my trainers or the front desk staff or the baristas, is just making sure that they recognize how important their piece of the puzzle is, and then allowing them to sort of shine within that purpose. And then the other thing I think that's really important for me, especially like having different levels of team members, is reminding them, just like we're reminding you guys, that the potential is limitless. So they might be working the front desk, but if they have ideas and they're creative and they want to get involved in another space of the business, that the opportunity is there for them. And I think that as a value system, allowing them to feel like there's no glass ceiling over top of their heads, is really important for my business in terms of keeping an amazing attitude and people who are really excited and passionate.
The question, can you just remind me what it was? Is it about building your team and who you work with?
Yeah, I think it was about.
I was going to ask Esther if she wanted to jump in on that one.
Values.
Did you want to respond to that, or?
I don't have a team yet. So.
Okay.
Did I answer the question, or was I off topic? I'm so sorry.
No, and this is what I like about the team. You know, there are business owners who are still working, maybe their full-time job, and then they're, you know, straddling their other entrepreneurial efforts. There are some who have a team, some who don't. So you guys are really getting the essence of the wide scale and stream of, you know, being an entrepreneur and building your brand in different ways. You wanted to add something?
Just on the part of empowering, I think what I didn't realize until I had something called Fight to End Cancer, my foundation part of things, I used to do everything by myself. I used to be the business owner, the trainer, the receptionist, every single thing. And I didn't realize until I had Fight to End Cancer, which now I have teams of over 200 people by event night that we're trying to coordinate, how absolutely important, more important, exactly what you're saying about the barista, or the person who sets the tone the minute the person walks into your business. That empowerment and allowing people not just to feel that way, but actually to be empowered, to empower themselves, is probably the key thing in all of our business and all of our, I guess, success, for lack of a better word. And that is what builds not just your business, but the community around us. Own it.
There we
Own
go.
it. Yeah.
The lady in the pink.
Hi, thank you, ladies, for all that you do and for being so positive for women, for young women. So I'm actually an alumni of Ryerson. My daughter did the sports media program here, and she's off to Vegas. She's doing her master's in Vegas. And so my concern, I guess, for her, she's very passionate, she's very focused, she wants to come back to Toronto to do broadcasting, is that there won't be room for her. And already she's being solicited in the US by the Golden Knights. But I really want her to come back. Right? And she's there as a TA doing her master's. So maybe you can give me some tips or words of wisdom in terms of what your experience has been like breaking into the industry, because before coming here, I'm also on the alumni committee here, and I chair the diversity and inclusion committee here. And so I don't see a lot of diversity and inclusion in sports when I watch the news, because we had to get every news channel, every sports channel. And so I'm just wondering, like, what is out there for a young female of color who is passionate, smart, she graduated with honors, who wants to do this job?
I'm going to weigh in there a little bit. I know I'm the moderator, but I know we didn't bring this up. And definitely, I think my advice to her is create your own content. We can't, at this juncture, wait for, and I love ESPN, I love Sportsnet. We can't always wait for the big names to come and you know, save us and say, hey, do you want to be on air? Because it doesn't work that way. She has to stand out, and I would definitely say create your own content. There is a lot of statistics now that people are cutting the cord. So, you know, she can do something where she's doing a Facebook Live. She can kind of build some streaming on Twitter. I think, you know, some people don't like to fully focus on the social media side, but I think that's where it is. And it's, you know, she can create her own content in a very affordable way. She can do a podcast. So I definitely would say create your own content.
And
there you go. Here's a place at the table. No. If I waited, I would have never started She's4Sports. I did not wait I didn't ask for permission. I just said this needed to be done. You mentioned you didn't see diverse women on these panels or on TV. I saw that too myself, and I said, what can I do about it? And I just did it. And it's growing. We're 3 years in, but we're growing, and the very fact that you guys came, you're here, you're showing that there's value in seeing women in sports and hearing from them.
And as much as people go, you know, I don't want to, what do you mean? I don't want a YouTube show. I want to be on television. Things are changing.
Yeah.
Working in television, things are changing. And, you know, being online is the place to be. So tell her that. And also tell her if she's getting an offer from the Nuggets, you said?
The Vegas Knights.
Oh, the
hockey.
Vegas Knights. Excuse me. Take it. A lot of us up here, you know, it's harder as a Canadian to jump to that side of the border. So if she's getting that already, tell her to take it. Sorry, Mom.
But to come back and visit you, right? Is there another question? The lady in the blue?
Hi. I just quit 27 years of corporate world.
Thank you.
Should we be clapping?
I feel that way too. I'm not in the sports industry, however, I'm in an entertainment industry, and I'm here to support a friend on a panel. But as I'm entering, this is very different. Corporate life for 27 years is very different than entrepreneurship. So I'm realizing I have a lot of blocks. What tips do you have, or that you could share? How do you get over yourself?
That is a great question. Esther, do you want to answer that before we get to somebody on the panel? How do you get over yourself being in the way to actually just, press the green button and launch your stuff or take a chance?
I think everybody kind of has something where they're thinking, oh, I don't have this experience, or, I'm too young, or I'm too this, or I'm not enough of that. So everybody has something where they're a little bit, I don't know, insecure or whatever you want to call it. And so, it's scary. It is, but ultimately you have to decide that what you want is greater than your fear. That's something that always helped me. I always knew that if I was afraid to do it, then I would never do it. So I had to convince myself, or almost psych myself out and say, I want this more than I'm afraid of it. Or I want to launch this brand, or have a seat at this table more than and that's more important than my fear or what I feel like I'm lacking. And then also sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it, a lot of people will message me on Instagram, and they will think that Playa Society is a huge brand with 30 employees, but it's just me faking it and pretending like I have this huge team that's holding t-shirts and shipping shirts and all of this, when it's really just me. And so, ultimately sometimes you just have to, um, pretend like you're already there, or like you have those assets that you feel like you're lacking, and ultimately you'll give yourself that confidence to push forward.
We have time for one last question. Sir, does anyone that hasn't asked a question? I'm so sorry. I'm a Libra. I have to be fair. Okay, so we'll go with you. Yeah, sorry. I'd be thinking about that all night tonight.
I should just do it. Thank you guys so much. Honestly, your wisdom and experience has been great to hear, and it's so empowering to come around and see women talking about things and just coming out into supporting women. I guess my question comes in as, and I guess anyone can weigh in on it. We were talking about formal experience in something, and when you maybe don't have that formal experience, how do you go about coming into a community of people who maybe do have that formal experience? And where do you pull that confidence from to be, like, I have maybe experience elsewhere, but how do you, I don't know, work alongside people who have that formal experience?
So I'm just going to say something that might strike a chord with all of you, but I sometimes feel like a fake, and I used to feel like a fake in a huge way in an industry where there was actually no criteria or training for what I do now. I am one of 17 women in the world who is a Olympic level referee for boxing. And I honestly the whole time felt like I was faking it till I made it, because I didn't know where I was going. So and I would say the majority of what I've accomplished, I had zero formal training in, figured it out as I went, which this panel today has made me feel a lot more confident in the achievements that I've had, because I didn't realize that, okay, you weren't, like, I mean, I've heard of Bolo, I've heard of OTC, I've seen you on TV, these are all things that I thought you needed to have, like, a crazy background. And you've given me some, like, inspiration now to be in the media, because I'm a dancer, I'm a professional dancer, maybe I can go there, but I think, right? Do you have a job? But, so I think, and I'll cut it there, is that I had zero formal training because it didn't exist for the things that I've actually gone after. and actually define. So when we're talking about your daughter who is looking to find something here, or your mom is looking for her to find something here, and not having a seat at that table, you got to build that table. And sometimes there's no definition to the course or I'm not a doctor, and that's one thing I can tell you. I'm not gonna I hate school. So, sorry, I'm in a school. I hated going to school. So you won't find formal training in most of the things that you're gonna accomplish, and I think that that's today what I got out of today, which is incredible. So I'll let someone else take it from there.
Well, I think, did you want to add something quickly?
No, it's all about the, reach out. Social networking is incredible. You have the opportunity now. You can Google someone and find, how to talk to them, send them an email. I bring people on set with me all the time that want that experience just to see what it's about and see if that's actually what they want to do. So I think that's a beautiful tool too.
So I want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you to my wonderful panel. This has been a very interesting conversation. We're going to try to get it edited and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can tell your friends who didn't come tonight that they can catch up and watch it possibly in the next week or so. I'd really want to thank Ryerson, the GXS Lab, Laurel and her team here who helped us out tonight. And Esther, thank you so much for joining us and being patient with us on Skype. I'm gonna sign off with you now because I know you probably have to get a couple things done. But thanks so much for joining us, and we're gonna send you a nice panel gift in the mail. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye. If you guys want to stay around and talk to some of the panelists and eat some more of that food, I can't eat all those cupcakes by myself now. And thanks for coming.